What's going on, guys? I'm Jerry, and today I'm going to be doing a full recap of the NFL from week one, going over a little bit over all the games, my picks, what I got right, what I got wrong, and how that's going to affect my predictions moving forward this season. So let's get right into it. Starting off, we had Lions and Chiefs. There it is, Lions and Chiefs. Obviously, I picked the Chiefs. That was not the case. Having Chris Jones and Kelsey out obviously hurt a lot. So I put on the side Goff is greater than Mahomes. That's a bit of a hot take, but in that game in particular, he did play better than Mahomes. You could argue that a lot of it was what I put on the other side of the wide receivers have bricks for hands. A lot of drops, way too many drops, specifically Kadarius Toney. You have a point sway of 14 points just from that one play where he threw it right to him, right into his hands, and it bounced right off of him into Brian Branch. He got his interception. If you saw my short where I did that little motion there, that was definitely not necessary for anybody to see, but you had to see it now twice if you saw it the first time. But yeah, I put defense was underwhelming for the Lions just because I thought, without Mahomes, I still thought did better than he should have, just in regards to who the receivers were. His most reliable target was Rashee Rice, and that just isn't how it should be. So he still had to scramble around. They did get a little bit of pressure, but I just thought the Lions' defense was underwhelming for what we expected it to be. I think, at least I was expecting it to be pretty good. So the fact that the Chiefs still scored 20 points and kept it close, I think the Lions, although they did play pretty good, I think personally they should have done better. And I think most of the reason that the Chiefs failed here was because of the drops. Like if you watch that game and if you watch like every offensive play that the Chiefs had, I don't think you could honestly say that the Lions played amazing defense because the interception was not Mahomes' fault. It was a perfect pass that got picked, and there was a bunch of other drops. So Mahomes needs somebody. I think moving forward, if Chris Jones obviously got his contract signed, right now Travis Kelce, it's still up in the air if he's going to play. That's probably going to be the determining factor on who wins the next game, Chiefs-Jaguars. But the other final thing for the Lions is Jahmyr Gibbs runs the ball really hard. Most of what we saw, the comparison for the NFL was Alvin Kamara. And with how explosive he was, and lowering his shoulder at times, and it was a really cool spin move. It was like somebody got an arm on him and he just kind of let them fall off and spun out of it. So good moves. Really liked what I saw from Jahmyr Gibbs. Lions are still going to be good, but I don't think the beating the Chiefs was impressive as some people are making it out to be. Next up, we had, Panthers, Falcons. I chose the Falcons. That one was correct. Not too much of a surprise there. I think the Panthers are going to need a lot of time, especially having Bryce Young, rookie quarterback. You can't really expect much week one. As you can see, I put there Young needs time. I wanted to see more run plays. A great way to set up a rookie quarterback for success is call run plays to set up the pass. You can set up play action, and the fact that there wasn't, you still have. I think Chuba Hubbard actually had a pretty good game, just didn't get a lot of touches. Efficiency-wise. So would have been nice to see that. And then on the other hand, I thought the defense looked pretty solid for what they had to deal with. Bryce Young had the 2 interceptions to Jesse Bates. So that both of those plays gave the Falcons very good field position for scoring. So, aside from those 2 scores, holding them to 10 points turnovers can make or break games. In this case, it broke the game, and that's why I put the defense won the game. The strong running duo of the Falcons, of Bijan and Tyler Algier, that was what they needed to win. Desmond Ridder threw 18 passes, completed 15 of them, and it was like barely 100 yards. So he didn't really need to do much to win. The running backs were very efficient, but I didn't think that they were amazing or anything. I was surprised that Algier got more touches than Bijan, or more carries at least. But we'll see moving forward. If if they're going to run, the two backs and their joker, Cordero Patterson, is going to come in there as well, I think that could be very successful for them to have a notable amount of playmakers. You still have Drake London. You still have Kyle Pitts. With Cordell Patterson, Algier, Bijan, you kind of have a very, very budget-friendly version of what the 49ers have going with all their offensive playmakers. I thought this defense looked solid. I put on the other side easy game because it's kind of tough to tell if the Falcons, obviously they were successful this game, but if they can hold that out throughout the season because of, is this an easy matchup? You can't really name too many people on the defense of the Panthers. J.C. Horn came out. Brian Burns is still there, but he's really the only name that you can at least I can mention just off the top of my head. If I think of stars on the Panthers, that's really all you think of. Their offense needs some work. I'd like to see Bryce Young maybe target Adam Thielen a little more. I believe he was only targeted a time or two, and he's although he's getting older, he's still a veteran, solid receiver that always had good seasons. Fell off a little bit last year in Minnesota with how many catches Justin Jefferson gets, but I think Adam Thielen could help that room a lot, and he has his opportunity now to be wide receiver one. So I'd like to at least see him be given the chance to get some more targets there. But moving on to the next game, we have Texans Ravens. So this one kind of went a little bit as expected. Honestly, the Ravens were very underwhelming. You'll see here I put the injuries just because of the sheer amount of injuries. It was nuts. So I guess I'll start over there. So you have Ronnie Staley, Tyler Linderbaum, Marlon Humphrey, J.K. Dobbins, horrible season-ending injury. Guy can't catch a break. I think there's another one that I'm thinking of that I can't mention, but it was basically the Zay Flowers show, and the run game was very sad. There was like 4 different people, including Lamar, that got like 6 to 8 touches, and nobody could really get anything going. It was all just very sad. So I think moving forward, with all the injuries that they have, that could be a scary team. Mark Andrews was out, so I think him being a huge part of that offense, that could help moving forward, but I still am going to need to see a stronger run game, because that was what people talked about is, Lamar Jackson's just a running back. And there's always been the committee, and they get injured, between Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. But I need to see a stronger run game for them to have success moving forward. And I believe they play the Bengals next week, so that's going to be a much tougher matchup. I'm sure they're pissed about getting absolutely mutilated by the Browns. So they're not going to take any shit. I feel like that's going to be an easy pick for next week. But yeah, Zay Flowers really showed out. And you have to remember, they still have Rashad Bateman. They have Odell Beckham Jr. So all of a sudden, that wide receiver core looks pretty solid. When they had, it was just Bateman before, you kind of had some questions. Obviously, there's Mark Andrews too. But now I feel like the team could be very solid. But barring the injuries and the poor run game, I don't know. I don't want to say that the Ravens could be out this year, but injuries really can hurt a team. And then Texans on the other time, I think Stroud looked decent. I would say he was probably the second best rookie quarterback, in my opinion, for starting week 1. So he played, I still think he played well, especially for the talent that's around him. Nico Collins is wide receiver 1. I'm sure some people don't even know who Nico Collins is. So he's a fine receiver, but he's not top 32. He's not a wide receiver 1 on probably any other team, I don't think. Defense was kind of sneaky good that game. I know I put in there, you look at the score and it's 25-9. How could the defense do good? But I think Lamar only had like 160, 170 yards passing, and they couldn't get the run game going. So it was really just Ravens getting short fields, and they got a lot of field goals too. So I did like how the Texans did, and I also nice. I did like how the Texans did on defense, but on offense, another game where I'd like to see more run game. When you have a rookie quarterback running, sets up the pass, it's going to make their life easier. And Damon Pierce is a talented running back. So I'd like to see him get some more touches. Maybe they have to find more creative ways. I don't know if they have to maybe use him out of the backfield or design something like that. But I think that would help elevate Stroud. And you're gonna see a trend throughout this video that if I put more run game, usually it's on the losing side because all the teams that ran the ball well won the game, and it was typically by large margins. Oh, on the moon. Margins is the word I was looking for. That's great. 925, got that one right. As we were talking about, here we go. So this was torrential downpour, super torrential downpour, very rainy. Typically, you would think that in a very rainy game where it does make it harder to catch the ball, that the Cincinnati Bengals would go out and run the ball a little bit. And Joe Mixon only had like 13 carries, and the team altogether, I think, only had 20. And that's where I put the bad play calling, because when you have a game like that, you just can't expect to pass the ball. T. Higgins had 8 targets, 0 catches. Now, should he have caught more? Absolutely. He's a big possession receiver. If you get targeted 8 times, you should catch some. But there's also reason to understand why it was missed, because it is hard to catch a ball in the rain. So that's where I put the bad play calling. I know that the Bengals kind of went down early, and maybe they thought that they had to pass to come back, but the Browns ended up playing great and just running the ball down their throat all game between Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson. Chubb went off, and that's where I put good play calling over there, because they chose to call more run plays and passed when they needed to. And it's such a simple thing, but that's the reason they won and the reason they dominated, in my opinion. Burrow Dunn's a bit of a hot take. It's really just only because he only had 82 passing yards in his first game of the year, which he hasn't in history done well. He's now 1-6 against the Browns since being drafted, so doesn't typically do well against the Browns, but he really did not play very well. Again, you can use the excuse of the weather, so that helps, but I don't think Joe Burrow is done at all by any means. I think it's more he just had a bad week, and he's going to bounce back. Like I said, I'm pretty sure they play the Ravens next week, and I'm fairly confident that's going to be a win just because of the situation the Ravens are in with injuries and the Bengals coming off a loss like this. They don't want to deal with that. And then dominant pass rush, it was really just the edge rushers. Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith was a huge addition to that defense. They both got a lot of pressure on the quarterback. You probably saw the viral video of Myles Garrett crossing up the center before he did it, and then he did the crossover move. Like, the amount of confidence that he has to do that and then just to execute after it, like, dude he's just a badass. And when you have a guy like that on your team, it's going to help you win games. So very dominant pass rush. And then again, I put the strong running in there because Nick Chubb just ran the ball all over him, and the Bengals couldn't do anything to stop it, which I think is scary to look at moving forward, because one of the downsides of the Bengals in these past years was their run defense. When you talk about their negatives, it's usually offensive line and run defense, and you could argue that it was the same sort of deal so far this year. Tough to tell with the weather. Browns have a good pass rush, so don't know how much you really learned from this game, but I definitely wouldn't be out on the Bengals yet. I think it could have just been a fluke thing because of the weather. So the next game is Jags-Colts. This one I picked the Jags. It was a win. I don't think they won as well as they should have. I think their defense was underwhelming. I put bad defense. Maybe underwhelming would have been a better term. But I also put Ridley's back because I did not expect, I know Calvin Ridley, how he was when he came in for Julio and had to be the number one back in Atlanta, but I did not expect him to show out like he did. And now all of a sudden that wide receiver room, people are saying that Christian Kirk could be wide receiver 3. I still think he could be like a wide receiver 1 on a team like I just talked about, the Texans with Nico Collins. If Christian Kirk goes over there, he's wide receiver 1. And with Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, that's going to be nuts, especially with Trevor Lawrence. Really just has to make sure they get open and put the ball on the money, which I think he'll be able to do. And that's why I put T-Law top 5, because when you think of top 5 quarterbacks, I think a big part of that is how talented their team is around them. And when you have three very solid receivers. ATN can play out of the backfield and set up the run. He played well too. It's very dangerous. So, you look at top fives. If you're keeping Burrow out of it for this year so far, there's a lot of quarterbacks that had bad weeks. All the top quarterbacks, honestly, now that I think about it, I mean, Rodgers unfortunately got injured 4 plays in. Joe Burrow had 82 passing yards. Josh Allen threw 3 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes didn't really play great and lost to the Lions. So, you could definitely make a case that Trevor Lawrence is top 5 so far. You saw people like Tua show out too. So, and then finally for the Jaguars, I put bad defense because I thought, and this is tough to tell yet, especially because it's week 1. We don't know how good Anthony Richardson is going to be, and we're going to have to see if his performance is going to be able to continue. He's who I thought was the best quarterback of the rookies, which is nuts because most people were saying he's going to need at least a year sitting behind a quarterback to have success. And I also put over there, he's the run game because Deion Jackson fumbled twice and kind of screwed over the Colts. But anyway, getting back to the bad defense, I would have expected the Jaguars defense, who I know it's just fantasy points, but I think they've been top 10 in fantasy points the last 4 or 5 years. So always been a pretty decent defense. I thought it looked bad against a rookie quarterback with a very subpar running back. And, Michael Pittman played well. And then Josh Downs looks good too, but there's just not a lot of good stuff going on that offense, or, you wouldn't expect it to. And that's why I think that the Jaguars defense, that might hurt them moving forward. If they allow 21 points against a rookie quarterback who doesn't have a run game and, doesn't have a whole lot of playmakers, I guess, the receivers don't look too bad when you have Pittman, you have Alex Pierce, and Downs looks like he could be pretty good. But yeah, I think that is definitely something the Jags will have to worry about. I put Anthony Richardson as the run game. Like I said, he led in rushing. Deion Jackson kind of screwed them over with the 2 fumbles and couldn't run the ball anyway. So I think it's time for Evan Hull, or it's time to contact Leonard Fournette, or I think Kareem Hunt still needs to be on a team. So contact somebody instead of Jonathan Taylor. I think it would help Anthony Richardson. If he can play that well with how bad the running game was, I would love to see, with getting the run game going, seeing how that could do. I thought the defense looked average, especially because maybe not last year, but 2 years ago and before that, the Colts always looked like they had a pretty good defense, and they allowed 31 to Trevor Lawrence. So, I mean, I just put average because you expect more. So that is, I would say, a negative for the Colts. I kind of expected more, maybe not after last season, but I expected more. So to allow 31 points, I mean, they scored 21, and a lot of teams, if you score 21 points, you might win the game. So I think the defense is going to need some help. And then finally, Anthony Richardson loves Michael Pittman. He threw it to him most targets by a long shot, and most receptions as well. But Pittman showed out, and he had a great game. And it was nice to see a reliable target for the rookie, Anthony Richardson. I think that pair, that's going to be nice, especially with Alex Pierce. He was pretty much a ghost. It wasn't doing anything. But, if he can get involved, and if Josh Downs, is so speedy and route running looked pretty good during that game. So if he can show out too, that's pretty dominant. Even just the pair of Downs and Pittman, with Pittman's ability to go up and get it and Downs' ability to be shifty and run around people. I think that could be a nice pair for Anthony Richardson. And if they had Jonathan Taylor, you'd think they'd probably win this game. I mean, 2 fumbles. I think both drives led to some sort of a score. I think it was either 14 or 10 points. I mean, that's the game right there. So, would be nice to see that. I think the Colts could do good. I think that was a promising week for Anthony Richardson, but Jaguars take it. Got that one right. Next up, we had Buccaneers. This one I was wrong. I thought the Vikings were going to absolutely murder the Buccaneers. I put Baker made plays. All he had to do was make plays when he needed to. Their run game was horrible. That's another one, and I said it was a trend for bad running game to usually lose. Vikings run game wasn't good either. Alexander Madison is not Dalvin Cook. Defense won the game though. There was the 2 fumbles. One, I believe it was Ed Ingram, just like swatted the ball out of Kirk's hands. So obviously that's not really his fault. Still Kirk's fault. I mean, you got to hold on the ball. Sure, it got swatted out by his own player. You never expect that to happen. But your job as the quarterback is to protect the ball, whether it be when you're throwing it or carrying it or running it or whatever you're doing. So defense won the game for the Buccaneers just off of those turnovers, but their run game was really bad. And Baker just kind of clutched up and won that game for the Buccaneers. And that's why I put over there Kirk fumbled the game, literally, because the 2 fumbles lost was huge. And probably, I would almost say they pretty much guaranteed would have won the game if that didn't happen. Even if you want to rule out the one where it was knocked out of his hand by Ed Ingram. Obviously, that was a bit more of a turning point in the game. But just one of those drives, if they could have gotten 3, you at least go to overtime, can make a more promising run. But despite playing a Buccaneers team that really just has some good receivers, I thought the Brian Flores-led defense played well. So sure, they allowed 20 points on the Buccaneers, but Buccaneers do have really good receivers, and the Vikings defense was one of the worst in the league last year. So I saw a lot more blitzing, which was not normal under Ed Donatel. So last year with the Vikings. So I think the Brian Flores defense definitely could work. There's not a whole lot of talent on that defense. They lost Zadarius Smith. You have Danielle Hunter. They lost their linebackers. I believe Ivan Pace Jr., the undrafted rookie, had a lot of playing time in that game. Harrison Smith is still there, and you got Byron Murphy, but I think it could be similar to last year, especially if you have Kirk making mistakes like that. They're going to lose 1-score games, and they won 8 of 9 last year. So it could be the same old Vikings. Unfortunately, we'll have to see how it works out. Justin Jefferson just kind of took away the show on the Vikings. Next game up, we got Titans Saints. I thought this one was going to be close, and I thought the Saints were going to win, and I was exactly right on that. I put Tannehill's done, which you could say is a hot take. You might not. I think that the Titans fans are going to be calling for Will Levis soon here. I don't think they're going to want Malik Willis anymore, but I put Henry Reigns king. He didn't have an amazing game by any means, but he did still prove that he is very difficult to stop. And honestly, it was kind of unfortunate to see him only get 15 carries because he averaged 4.3 a carry. And when he ran the ball, he did run the ball well. So I don't understand why they didn't give him the ball more, especially with Tannehill just did not look good. Missing throws. He looked really sluggish. He was a wide receiver turned quarterback. And sure, the last time he was a wide receiver was in college, but I don't think he just looks so slow. So that's why I put Tannehill as done. I could honestly see in like week 3 or week 4 if the Titans, like if they get a big loss or something, or they're down a lot at some point in the game, they're going to be calling for Will Levis. Other thing was the defense looked promising. Derek Carr was slinging it all over the place, and there's a lot of talented receivers over there. Chris Olave, Michael Thomas is back. Rashid Shaheed or Ashid, I don't know how to say his name, but he actually looked very good as a third option. They still have Taysom Hill. Jamal Williams is a nice little receiving back / short yardage back. So once they get Kamara back, that offense is going to be kind of nuts. I put Carr looks really comfortable. He was just standing in the pocket, calm as hell. He'd step up if he needed to. If he sensed pressure, he'd roll out when he needed to. So he looked really comfortable, really strong. And I think they're probably going to be scoring a lot more, I think, if you don't play against a defense that played well in the Titans. So I think that offense is very strong. The defense is strong in the Saints, and they have one of the easiest schedules this year. So that's why I have them winning a lot more games. And I won't be surprised if they have, they're towards the top of the North just because of their easy schedule. But then I put over there, run game needs Kamara because the run game was not very good in this particular game. So Jamal Williams just did all right. I don't think anybody averaged 4 yards a carry. So, or maybe somebody had like one rush or something, but run game looked pretty rough. So it'd be nice to see that better, and I think that'll attribute to more points. But I was right. Saints win. Towards the end, I got a bunch wrong. This one I also got right. What I was wrong about was I thought this was going to be a close game. I thought, 49ers got to fly all the way across the country, play the Steelers. I'm thinking, Steelers could do it. Supposedly have a talented defense. You can see over there I put just TJ Watt is the defense because that kind of turned out that was the case that game. But on the 49ers, so many playmakers. It's just nuts how Brandon Ayuk, you could say he was the star of the show, or you could say Christian McCaffrey. We kind of know what Christian McCaffrey is, and we've known Brandon Ayuk is good, but he just went off in that game. The 2 touchdowns, bunch of receptions, and he just kept getting open. Deebo Samuel's a nice wide receiver that kind of has that running back frame where they put him in the backfield, and you can throw a screen pass, and he can fight for extra yards, and he's kind of like the other end of the Cordero Patterson, where Cordero Patterson's a running back that can play receiver because, well, he was a receiver, whereas Deebo's a wide receiver that can play running back. Just all the playmakers, and it's on offense and defense too. Fred Warner was in there, filling gaps when he needed to. He dropped an interception and had a couple pass deflections. Talanoa Hufanga had a sweet interception, took it back, tried to lateral it, which was cool. Almost went to the house with that. Unfortunately, it was a legal forward pass. But Bosa, Warner, Hufanga, Deebo, McCaffrey, I didn't even mention George Kittle. Like, there's just so much talent. Trent Williams is the best left tackle in the game. So, so many playmakers, so fun to watch. My favorite team to watch. I think it will be my favorite team to watch this year. And I put perfect fit for Brock Purdy. Everybody said Purdy good, and can he do it again this year? Coming off of a injury to an arm that he throws with as a quarterback. And didn't really have much preseason. So we go, can he do it against a strong Steelers defense? He sure can, because he did exactly what he needed to do. He threw it where it needed to be, when it needed to be. He even had a couple nice little scrambles showing his little bit of speed there. He's no star athlete like Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson, but he got loose when he needed to. Just very clean game from Brock Purdy. So I love to see that, Mr. Irrelevant shining after the injury, after going undefeated in his first season as the starter, and just to come out and win another one was great. And then the hot take is CMC for MVP, with how important he was to that team and how crazy his stats were. 22 carries for 152 yards, couple receptions. If he keeps that up, or even just 2/3 of that up, I think he could be in the MVP conversation just because of how dominant he is. And I think the only reason that he hasn't is because he's been injured in past years. Moving over to the Steelers, need to see more out of the defense than just TJ Watt. He kind of just dominated the whole thing. Their other defensive lineman, Cameron Hayward. Is it Cameron Hayward? I think it's Cameron Hayward. He came out injured. Just defense didn't look good. They just got absolutely dominated by the 49ers. We didn't see preseason Pickett. So Kenny Pickett, people were saying if you had to pick who was the best quarterback in the preseason, it was Kenny Pickett, and he did play very well. He had a very tough matchup week 1 and showed that clearly isn't who he is yet. People were saying he's going to get to call audibles and do other stuff this year, and it might change. And that didn't look good. I think it's tough to knock him completely because of how talented that 49ers team is. But yeah, Pickett's gonna have to do some work. And the line didn't help him though. The offensive line was not great, so you can kind of blame them a little bit for that. More run game, another one. 10 carries. I put that in parentheses there. 10 carries. That was the whole offense. So the entirety of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, there was 10 carries. That's just unbelievable. You have Najee Harris, you have Jaylen Warren, another situation where you get down early and then you kind of are fighting back, so typically you have to pass, and maybe they were just trying to see if they could pass, but the defense is also predicting that they're going to pass because you want to try to come back, but you got to run the ball more. Again, run the ball to set up the pass with a young quarterback. That would help a lot. Got this one right. Again, thought it was going to be close. Clearly wasn't. But the 49ers look absolutely dominant. So I'm interested to see this season moving forward how that's going to continue, because it looks like they're going to be a really good team. Next up, we have the stinker of the week, the Commanders and the Cardinals. Actually, a closer game than expected. The Cardinals, I didn't expect to see. I did pick that one right. It was a lot closer than I thought. I thought the Cardinals were surprisingly good for having Josh Dobbs at quarterback. They're weren't expecting much, so you'd think Commanders would be expecting the run, but the run game was still pretty strong, all things considered, with James Conner. And the defense played well. It's tough to tell, and I put that in the Commanders side. Tough to tell because, you don't really know what these teams are yet. I put Sam Howell needs time because he was looking good in training camp and in practice, and there's a little bit of hype around him, and he kind of showed that sure, he has Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas is all right. But Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, all those talented offensive playmakers, and they still only ended up winning by 4. I put tough to tell because we don't know if it's because the Cardinals' offense is bad, and or the Cardinals' defense is bad, and or maybe the defense is good, and Howell was playing all right against a solid defense, or maybe Howell was playing bad because he's against a bad defense. So because we don't know much about these teams, I think it's tough to tell. I still put that the defense won the game just because they held back the scores. Josh Dobbs wasn't able to score, and the Commanders did not play very well on offense. They just played a little bit better. That ended up being enough to win that game. Got that one correct. Again, closer than I thought it was going to be, but it was still correct. This is probably one of my worst. Well, actually, it's not one of my worst picks because you'll see that one later. Jordan Love looked phenomenal. He had the highest passer rating of the week and just put the ball where it needed to be, when it needed to be there. He actually had a couple missed throws, but it didn't really matter because the Bears weren't able to capitalize getting any turnovers or anything of the sort. And then on the other side of it, the defense made big plays. Forced a fumble on Justin Fields while he was running, which that's something I feel like when you have a quarterback that's known for fumbling. I saw a stat the other day. It was like 55 fumbles. I might be thinking of somebody else, but I know it was more than 50 fumbles for Justin Fields in his first 3 years, which is that's horrible. Like that's not all lost, but that's just horrible. So Packers defense taking advantage of that and getting the forced fumble. Also got a really easy interception that ended up going to the house. Making big plays like that. That was a game-changing play in the game. The Bears were coming back. They had momentum. And Justin Fields had DJ Moore open on the left side of the field and just tried to force the ball to Darnell Mooney, and it got picked. He tried to return it, bounced off a couple guys, and took it to the house. I put NFC North champ because of how dominant they were against the Bears. The defense looked good. Aaron Jones was a big part of their offense, but he made that team look really good. And you kind of have to factor that into with Jordan Love. Like, Aaron Jones had 2 receptions for 85 or 82 yards. So if Jordan Love got 250 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, that accounted, without those even just the one, or I guess both the Aaron Jones plays, you're looking at 170 yards and 2 touchdowns, which all of a sudden doesn't really look that great. But Aaron Jones did make those plays, and so it counts towards the stats. So I don't want to knock them for that, but I think they could be the NFC North champs because the Lions, although it was the Chiefs, they barely beat a Chiefs team that didn't have their second and third best player. Chiefs didn't have any pass rush. Mahomes didn't have a reliable target, and the Lions still only won by 1 point. So I think if the Packers continue to play like they did, again, we don't really know. There was a lot of hype around the Bears. Are the Bears just a really bad team again? I think that's what you kind of have to assume. But if they are a good team and the Packers just dominated them, that looks a lot better for the Packers. And then Bears just kind of kicked themselves in the foot, in the ass, wherever you want to kick them, the whole game. Because coaching staff, it was absolutely horrible. I think the most responsible, I put need a healthy O-line, and that's obviously part of it. But I think most of the responsibility goes to Luke Getsy and to Justin Fields. So as far as play calling goes, there was one designed run for probably, I would say, one of the best running, if not the best running quarterback in the NFL. I'd say, he's about as fast as Lamar, but he's bigger and more powerful. So I think you could say he's the best running quarterback in the league. One designed run play, and it was a fake screen quarterback dive. It was the stupidest play call I've ever seen. And then as far as the passing plays, 40 of the 50, I think there was 54 dropbacks. 40 of them were straight dropbacks. Justin Fields showed last year that when he was rolling out and getting outside of the pocket and, able to make room with his legs rather than the offensive line blocking, the Bears had a lot more success. And most of the plays they called were just straight dropbacks, and they were trying to turn Fields into this pocket passer, and then he would take too long to throw the ball. He would miss people downfield. When you watch the film, you can see that he was missing open receivers downfield, so he's got to push the ball downfield more. And again, a healthy O-line would help that. But all the screen passes, came out and could have had some good screen passes, but there was just way too many. The whole game looked like it was horizontal. There was no vertical plays from the Bears. So that's why I think they kicked themselves in the foot a lot. And I think the offense does deserve some sort of reassurance because the Packers defense looked good and they still scored 20 points against them. And like I said with the Colts scored 21 points on the Jaguars defense, who's supposed to at least be a top half defense. And a lot of teams, if you score 20, 21 points, you win the game. But again, other problem is the defensive line was weak. Defensive line could not get at Jordan Love, and Yannick Ngakoue got a sack or a sack and a half or something. But there was only, I think, 6 total pressures the whole game. So Jordan Love, all he had to do was sit back there in the pocket and just throw it at him. I think it could be a wake-up call for the Packers if they go up against a team with a better defensive line because we haven't really seen Jordan Love under pressure yet. So I'd be interested to see what happens there. But the Bears definitely don't look good and are probably going to need to win next week with going into Kansas City Week 3. Next we had the Broncos-Raiders. I did think this was going to be a close game, but I picked the Broncos, hoping that Russ and Sean Payton would have had a good offseason. But it ended up being Jimmy Garoppolo looked great, threw the ball where it needed to be. Jacoby Myers ended up being the star receiver over Devontae Adams. O-line played well. Jimmy G looked good. It was kind of the same situation as Derek Carr, where he just kind of stood back there comfortably, threw the ball, threw it where it needed to be, when it needed to be there. The downfall was honestly Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs did not have a good game. We were expecting a good game from him, just didn't play very well. So I don't know what they have to do to fix that. But I think the Raiders could be better than expected, and I actually was kind of high on them. They just have a really difficult schedule too, and I put the defense played well enough because most of it is Max Crosby, and Chandler Jones when he's playing there, and so they looked fine. But you're playing against the Broncos offense, which last year did not look good at all. So this can go one of two ways. If the Broncos offense has stepped it up, Russ looks better this year, then you could go back and say, oh, maybe the Raiders did have a good defense. But the Broncos, Russ did not look different at all. He looked very similar to last year, so I didn't really see an improvement. Another thing, more run plays. Again, typical trend, run the ball more. Javonte Williams was very talented when he was healthy, and very strong runner, and barely gave him the ball. I want to say I don't think he had 15 touches. I think very low amount of touches for how much talent that he has, and that was a close game. So there's not like, oh, you're down by a lot and have to pass. Like we should have seen more run plays, and that's part of the. Again, this is my opinion. I guess the coaches all have their schemes, but when looking at all the games side by side, in almost every game, whoever ran the ball less lost in most cases. And then the final thing was no pass rush. Only 3 quarterbacks hits, no sacks. That makes it really easy for Jimmy Garoppolo, who we have known is able to stand in the pocket and throw the ball where it needs to be, except in the Super Bowl. But if he's able to do that, he's going to win the game. So you got to have better pass rush. That looked rough. Only 3 quarterback hits, no sacks. Just that's a big part of it, and that's why the Bears don't do very well. Is because they can't get pressure on the quarterback, and the quarterback just has to stand back there and throw the ball where it needs to be. And so yeah, Broncos could be tough if Sean Payton and Russ don't figure it out. Next, we had the Dolphins and the Chargers. This one was a lot. Well, it wasn't closer than I expected, but it was an insanely close game, fun to watch. Tyreek Hill just gets his own line because he was that whole offense. You have to give some credit to Tua too. I still think it's just the fact that you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. That's an unbelievable combo to have on the field. O-line played great. You can see over in the Chargers with the pass rush that the Chargers have in Bosa and Khalil Mack, only 2 quarterback hits and no sacks on Tua, who last year his problem was the concussions and getting hit, and he went to jiu-jitsu to learn how to fall. And so, big problem for the Chargers if they have those people. Joey Bosa is actually not healthy right now. I don't think he practiced today. But having him out's not going to be good. You have J.C. Jackson, Derwin James. So you have so much talent on that defense, and they let up 36 points. Big part of that was the play calling on defense. They ran more. They ran man more. They ran man more than any other team in the league. And they were going up against Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I would consider them man beaters. Not like, Adrian Peterson, I guess. Different conversation. We won't worry about man beaters. But anywho, gotta do better. Gotta do better as far as play calling. I'd like to see more zones. Make Tua make the decision to throw it into a window, or not, because there was a play where Tyreek Hill was like 5 yards down the field. Tua took it looked like a 2-step drop, maybe it was a 3, and he just hucked it up, and it just landed into Tyreek Hill's arms like 40 yards down the field. So when you're able to do that, where you're able to just get the snap and just throw it up, that's an absolute weapon. I put the Dolphins miss Jalen Ramsey because the Chargers scored 34 points. Ramsey's good as far as, he can make tackles and come into the box and not quite be a linebacker, but definitely can play more like a safety for being a cornerback as far as his finding the ball and his tackling ability. And that would have helped with the big physical receivers of Keenan Allen's not as big as Mike Williams and Quentin Johnston, but I think Jalen Ramsey, I don't think this game is as close with Jalen Ramsey, and I'm not very high on Jalen Ramsey. I think he's kind of overrated. But I think in this case, could have helped that game. Also, the great run game on the other side of it. Great run game for the Chargers. Austin Eckler looked phenomenal, and Joshua Kelly looked really good too. They split carries. They both had 16 carries. So this was one of those rare games where the team that ran the ball less won. But again, it was a very close game. It was a field goal away from the Chargers winning it. So defense needs work. I kind of already talked about that with, unfortunately Bosa's out, but you have Bosa, you have Khalil Mack, you have J.C. Jackson, you have Derwin James. How are you letting the other team score 36 points? There's something wrong there. I don't know what that fix is, unfortunately. I think the Chargers still looked good. Defense needs to be fixed. Offense looked better with Kellen Moore. But ended up getting that one right, and I'm going to start getting these wrong here soon. This one I got right. I feel like I got it wrong because I think the Patriots very well could have won this game. The Eagles started off very good, went up 16-0, and I think when they went up, was it 13-0 at first or 16? Whatever it was, they didn't score a touchdown in the second half. They only got field goals, and that was what kept them in the game. I put on there bend but don't break as well because that's what their defense did. Mac Jones had a phenomenal game throwing the ball. What was he, 35 for 54, over 300 yards. I think there was only one pick. Very important pick, though, and that's the costly mistakes on the Patriots side, was the pick 6 to Big Play Slay. That was kind of a turning point. That was where the Patriots kind of got stuck into this. We have to pass the ball, where you have Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott, who didn't play too bad, but I think would have gotten more opportunities if the game was closer. And that pick six was kind of what set it off and made the game out of hand. Early on, I'm sure there were people turning the game off because of how much the Eagles are dominating the Patriots. But Eagles got a lot of pressure on Mac Jones. Didn't seem to phase him too much, but I know Jalen Carter had 8 pressures alone, which is nuts. So that defensive line does still look good. I don't know if they're missing Hargrave that much just because of how Carter played. But yeah, we already talked about Max slinging it. We talked about costly mistakes. The big plays were from them on offense. In the second half, they showed out. Kendrick Bourne had 2 massive receptions. So almost got back in that game. Very, very much so could have won that game. And that's kind of scary for the Eagles. If they can allow all that to happen, if they don't get that pick six, easy loss there. And the Eagles' run game, I don't think, looked very good, especially for that kind of being their strong suit. Their offense, in general, really didn't look good. Jalen Hurts didn't really pass the ball too well. They just got up early and held the lead. So a little bit scary to me for the Eagles. But, again, still won the game, got it right. I thought it was going to be a blowout, but Patriots kept it close, kept fighting, could have won the game, but the Eagles just win by a beak there. Next up, speaking of beaks, we have, the Seattle Seahawks just got mollywopped by the Rams. I thought the Rams were going to get, I thought it was the opposite. I was very wrong about this one. Seahawks were up in the first half. They were up 13-7. Or 13-6? One of those two. Rams just absolutely took over. Matt Stafford was slinging it. Puka Nacua was out there. Kyren Williams, phenomenal in the run game. Cam Akers was okay, but Kyren Williams was great, and you can see there, time of possession was the big thing that won it for him. They had the largest time of possession in the whole league this week, and that was a big reason that they won. What's an easy way to stop a team that has Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Kenneth Walker? Not have them be on the field. And that's what they did. You still have Aaron Donald over there, but there's not much else to talk about on the Rams defense, and it sure did look good holding the Seahawks to 13 points with all those playmakers. So I put for the Seahawks couldn't get off the field, and that's what happened. Rams kept converting on third down, and the Seahawks did the opposite. They couldn't convert a third down. I want to say they were 2 for 9. It was awful. And that alone can be a reason that you lose a game. Those are very important. That's what I see being a Bears fan, having to watch the Bears not be able to convert on third down and watching other teams just easily convert third downs. That seems like my life. So seeing the Seahawks do that, I felt their pain. Worst second half in a long time, 12 yards total. That's total yards, rushing, passing. 12 total yards in the second half. I'd like to see the stat for the least amount of yards in a second half and winning the game, because it's definitely not 12. Seahawks did not look good in that second half. Little bit of promise in the first. Sean McVay must have instilled greatness and everything that you could into his players in that locker room during halftime, because Rams came out to play in the second half and ended up with the W. And I was wrong about that. This was my biggest fail. I screwed up. My fault. I get it. Total domination by the Cowboys. They were faster in every position, everywhere. Getting to the quarterback was nuts. Skeptical on offense. I feel like I have to put a downside to the Cowboys. And granted, the offense didn't have to do much, but I think we're gonna need to see a game where, you play against an offense that can be dominant, and the Cowboys' offense is able to keep them in the game, because the offense did not really have to do very much. We didn't have to see Tony Pollard get a brunt of the load and continue to run the ball, because that was kind of the worry with, Zeke was the power back and takes a brunt of the carries, and then, Tony Pollard comes in and makes the flashy plays. He's got to be that guy this year, making, every down back. They have Deuce Vaughn, and I think they have somebody else over there, but We didn't even really have to see that just because of how dominant the defense and special teams, the blocked field goal for a touchdown, the pick six. But yeah, I do think the Cowboys were a little skeptical, and I think still to worry about yet. People said Dak played all right. He just didn't have to do anything. So I think it's going to take another game to see what that offense does. And I put the offensive line was horrible. I don't know if you can even say that. I put bad. I thought they were horrible. The Cowboys are so strong. So I think, and so fast. I think you're going to have to, we might have to see another week on both of these teams to see if they're, one thing stands out. Oh, maybe we learn, the Giants' offensive line is really bad and the Cowboys is just pretty good defensive line. I don't think that's going to be the case. But it could be the other way where, the Giants have a good offensive line and the Cowboys just have the greatest defensive line ever. Also put the run game was shut down. You have Saquon Barkley. He couldn't do much. Daniel Jones was good running the ball. A lot of people betting the overs on his rushing yards, in the sports bets, and they could not run the ball for shit. And got down early, kind of forced to pass the ball. They kept Danny Dimes in there, and he kept getting his ass kicked. Didn't really seem prepared. That was a very rough game for the Giants. I saw the interview after. Dable was pissed. Daniel Jones, I don't know if maybe that was the first time I saw him in an interview, but he looked like an absolute dork. And the way he answered questions, I could not believe that guy was an NFL quarterback because he just, we didn't play a good game, and I just it was rough. So didn't seem prepared. Giants got their ass whooped. Cowboys did great. Got that one wrong. I was kind of hoping for an upset there. And the final game of the week, last but not least, game of the year candidate. There's a catch of the year candidate. I was wrong, but wow, what a crazy game. I put offense starts off hot because they did. Bills were doing well on offense. Jets have their first drive. Bang, Rodgers is out in 4 plays. Garrett Wilson has to come in and do it. Breece Hall had some phenomenal runs. His first 3 plays, minimum 20 yards every time. And they were saying on the Manning cast, because that's the one I watched, they're saying, hey, who's that guy that got the 60-yard and the 40-yard play? Yeah, why don't we hand it to him? And one of the next plays, they pass it to him for like 20 yards or whatever it is. So, Breece Hall went off. And honestly, it was kind of weird because you thought, everybody, the whole mood kind of died down when, the biggest move of the whole offseason and the biggest story, Rodgers going to the Jets, he goes down, and we end up finding out, unfortunately, he's out for the whole season. But everybody thinks the Jets are out of it. This looks like it was, if we're going to talk about scripts, this looks like it was a script for Hard Knocks to have Aaron Rodgers go out, and then Josh Allen throws 3 picks, all to the same guy, Jordan Whitehead, who hits an incentive. We'll talk about that a little bit later. 3 interceptions, was driving down the field, was in field goal range, and threw another interception. And then the Jets just did enough. They get the ball back, end up getting the big field goal, doinks off the upright, go to overtime. Josh Allen goes 3 and out, and then the walk-off punt return. I mean, that game was just nuts. Defense stepped it up big time. I put over there too. Those 3 interceptions and the fumble. I didn't even mention the fumble. Josh Allen fumbled. That was a super costly play. So poor second half offense is a bit of an understatement. The Bills, and unfortunately mainly Josh Allen, just kind of ruined that game for the whole team. So you hate to single out one guy, but he threw 3 picks and he fumbled the ball in an important moment. And it was still a very close game, resulting in the Jets taking it away. So I was wrong about that. I really thought I was going to be right when Aaron Rodgers comes out. Oh, and I got to talk about the Garrett Wilson catch. So I don't know if I've seen somebody do this where he bats the ball away from the defender that's about to pick the ball off and then taps it back to himself and then catches it on the ground. That was unbelievable and a pivotal moment where, they turned an interception with a touchback. Garrett Wilson single-handedly turned that into a touchdown. So that was absolutely huge. Again, wrong on this one. I'm going to go out dead even. I look like the Vikings of the past years other than last year. But I was 8-8 on my selections. Most of my selections where I thought it was going to be, there was like most of them. If I thought it was going to be close, it was a blowout, or I was wrong. So there was a couple like the Giants in specific where I was trying to pick underdogs and thought they could win it, and that was not the case. So 8-8 all season. I'm going to keep track of these all season and hopefully see what I can get. I'd love to have a positive record. That would be real nice. But so far we're 8-8, so not too bad. And I got some season leaders, week 1 leaders, and I got some fun facts, some team stats. Mac Jones, I said, was 35 for 54. He had the most attempts and completions. Tua dominated the passing yard department, though, with 466. Jordan Love, I mentioned earlier, had the highest passer rating at 123.2. Clearly, you could read all these. For all the people that have trouble seeing, I'm going to still read them off to you. Christian McCaffrey, 22 for 152. Absolutely dominated. Tyreek Hill was nuts. You'd think you'd want to guard that guy that's the fastest in the NFL, that goes by Cheetah. 11 receptions for 215 yards. Bobby Wagner, 19 tackles. So nice to see the old man getting back in there, getting back in the stats. I think a couple people that were close, like Roquan Smith was close. Their linebacker room looks like they could be good. Roquan, Patrick Queen, and then Trenton Simpson's over there now too. Sack and TFL leader was 6 total with Josh Allen. And not the Josh Allen that was throwing interceptions to the person below, Jordan Whitehead, but the defensive end for the Jaguars. He had the 3 sacks, 3 TFLs. Wouldn't expect a name like Josh Allen, I don't think, to be the leader in those departments. Another couple close ones was Drake Jackson of the 49ers. He had, I think, 3 sacks and 2 tackles for a loss, which is very impressive, especially for another name. You wouldn't think there's a guy in the 49ers that got 3 sacks and 2 TFLs. That's Bosa, right? Nope. It was Drake Jackson, so that's cool. Kind of a nice duo to have over there. You still have Eric Armstead, so 49ers look good. And then there was the Steelers, actually, with TJ Watt. TJ Watt had 3 sacks, 1 TFL, and 2 forced fumbles. So he's, could call him, maybe aside from Jordan Whitehead, one of the defensive players of the week. Even though 49ers still scored a lot, TJ Watt single-handedly had a phenomenal week. Ended up with the most, I put both of these on there because of the difference. You got most offensive yards, this is total, was 536 for Miami, and then 142 is what the Browns allowed against the Bengals, which is crazy to me that, the Cincinnati Bengals, who have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, only got 142 yards of offense. And it was a slop fest, but, almost 400-yard difference between the best and the worst there. And then most takeaways was the Jets, with Jordan Whitehead's 3 interceptions and the fumble recovery, and that was the reason that they ended up winning this game. You don't think that, most people weren't expecting them to win once Rodgers got down, and the takeaways was what did it. So, fun facts, we got Josh Allen is 0-5 in overtime. So that's obviously not great. You got the most notable ones probably, arguably this one, and then there's the Patrick Mahomes, where he never got a chance and they changed the playoff rules because he didn't get a chance because of that coin toss. Anthony Richardson is the youngest player to score a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown in the same game. And so I thought that was kind of fun, kind of interesting, and doesn't really show that he's a great player, but it is a cool stat to have and to be able to show. And then you got Jordan Whitehead, earned his season interception incentive. So $250,000 was for if he got 3 interceptions over the course of the whole season. He just did that in the first game, which I thought was a very fun and interesting stat. There was also another one that I saw after I made this great image here. That was Aaron Rodgers will be the first quarterback to have to start the first game and not have a completion for the rest of the season, except for some quarterback in the 50s. I don't even remember what his name was. Didn't put it in here, obviously. But yeah, so that was a fun fact too. Pretty cool. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or advice, or anything that you'd like to add, what I should do, should I put Is there any other information that I should be putting? Let me know. Obviously, I'm new to these YouTube videos, but I love talking football, love talking sports. I think I mentioned earlier that I'm going to be doing some trivia. So I'm going to have a predictions video coming out pretty soon for week 2, my week 2 picks. And leave recommendations for that too. Do you want me to put scores? Do you want me to put more on the screen? I said more on. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.